Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Under the Wire. It's good to see you all here this morning. It's sort of a beautiful day here in northern New South Wales, and I have a fantastic guest that I'm going to be interviewing for the first half of the show, Victor Tay from Sydney, who has a website called exercisingmyrights.com, and he's also on Facebook. And I just found out about him last week and really wanted to have him on the show. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Victor, and he will tell you a bit about what he's been doing. Good morning, Victor.
Hey, Meryl, how you doing? Thanks for having me
I'm
on.
good. Thank you. Thanks for coming. I appreciate that. So, yeah, I only just found out about you a little while ago. I think someone shared one of your videos on my own private Facebook page, and I thought this is fantastic. Because what you're doing is basically going out there and telling people that they need to be exercising your rights. What I wanted to start with is just to ask, when is it, like how long ago was it that you decided to do something like exercising your rights? And what was the last straw for you that made you get out and start doing this in the streets of Sydney?
Right. Well, it's all very fresh, but maybe I'll just give you a bit of background. I mean, with the website exercisingmyrights.com, there's three main issues that I'm trying to address and the information I'm trying to get out. So the first one is that the cure will be worse than the disease when it comes to this coronavirus and what they're doing and the government emergency measures. The second is that the data behind this coronavirus is unreliable. And the third one is that the government response is a huge infringement on our God-given right. So I'll just go into each of those briefly. So what I mean by the cure is worse than the disease is these lockdowns. A lot of people don't realize, I think, that there will be potentially devastating and deadly consequences to these lockdowns. Generally, when lockdowns happen, suicides increase and depression and drug abuse. And I'm even reading articles yesterday that they're worried that the lockdowns are hiding domestic abuse numbers because people are, more scared to reach out to things. And, and when people go through economic problems, they also have poorer diets and poorer health. And then you add to that the fact that the government is, who knows where, people don't. I was speaking to some people out in the city, and they said to us, oh, but everyone's fine, even though they don't have a job. The government's giving people this money, and it's like, where do you think this money is coming from? Obviously that's destroying our savings. It's putting our children and us further into debt, and we're already, I don't know the exact number. I quoted like $1 trillion, but it's like somewhere between 500 billion to $1 trillion that we're already in debt, and it's going even further into debt. So there's that. That's one point. The second point is, that when you look into the data, the coronavirus data is completely unreliable, and there's a growing body of experts that are questioning the data. So I've got a lot of those. There's about 25 listed on my website so far, but I saw that Off Guardian listed another 8 experts that are speaking out, questioning the data, questioning the measures, and they are not getting a wide media coverage. So that's something I'm trying to get out there. And what's interesting is you can even read up this information yourself, and you can see that the mortality rates that are being quoted are unreliable. It's so and it's so misleading. Like when I found out, when they quoted the mortality rate, because everyone keeps saying, oh, the coronavirus is so much more deadly than the seasonal flu. But when you look up how they quoted the mortality rate, they used the case fatality rate, which is total confirmed cases for the coronavirus, but then for the flu they use the total estimated number of cases. So it's completely apples to oranges, and it's just shocking that when you show that to people, because everyone keeps repeating the narrative that it's so much deadlier, but then yet they don't know the data that it's based on. So I'm trying to get that information out there, that the WHO website even shows that somebody doesn't even have to be proven that they have COVID-19 to be recorded as a COVID-19 death. So there's definitely no distinction happening in the data between people dying of COVID-19 and people dying with COVID-19. And the last...
Which is a big difference.
Absolutely. It's funny how people are joking about it. and saying, "Oh, it's like coronavirus has has cured all these other ailments. So nobody's dying of cancer anymore. Nobody's dying of pneumonia or heart disease. It's all coronavirus deaths now." And the last one is just this government response is a complete infringement on our God-given rights. I think the government is going about this situation in a completely incorrect way, and stripping us of a lot of fundamental liberties that we have had in this country. So I do agree. I do want to say I agree that those that are infected and those that are high risk, should be protected and quarantined. Those infected should be quarantined, and those that are high risk should have increased protections. But the rest of us should be allowed to live and work freely, because, when you lock down the sick, that's quarantine. But when you lock down the healthy, that's tyranny. And this is how God deals with it in Leviticus 13 as well. He quarantines those that are actually infected, whilst the rest of us can go about our lives. And, I think that's something that is unfortunate, that people are so fearful with all this hysteria that it's not that we're getting oppressed by this minority of people. It's actually the majority of people now are actually demanding this oppression and really not appreciating their liberty. So I definitely think the government should deal with this situation in a way where it preserves our liberties. So those are the three main messages I'm trying to get out with, I guess, what I would deem this as like it's obviously a publicity stunt, right? I'm trying to do this to get a message out, but we decided to do this. I decided to do this in a way that had the least legal risk, right? So the way we sort of came up with we came up with this idea, it was about 2 weeks into the more severe lockdowns where our church could no longer meet. Right, so that was kind of like the final straw for us, where we went to the limitation went to 100 people. Where we're like, that's fine, because our church is less than 100, so we could just continue as we were. Then it went down to the 2 by 2 meter rule. So our church is about 40 to 50 people. So that brought us the limit down to 36 in the community hall that we meet in. So then when we met, we were starting to meet outside. So I said, okay, well, I'll book a shelter outside and we'll just continue to meet. But then the lockdown said, well, no more public gatherings. So it was about 2 weeks into that where me and a few men of the church, we got together just to discuss, hey, what are our options moving forward and what are the potential consequences of each option. And at one point in the conversations, I had the thought and I said, man, the thing about these lockdowns, because it's illegal to get together in a public space, you can't even really organize a protest, because the lockdown itself has outlawed people protesting against these lockdowns. Right? And
which is unconstitutional. That is unconstitutional, because we have the right to protest according to the Constitution. Somehow this whole COVID-19 lockdown situation has totally overturned our constitutional rights as well as our God-given rights. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point, because when you look because I looked into the human rights to see, like, how are they justifying this. I know the lady I spoke to yesterday was talking about some biosecurity acts. I'm not too familiar with that, but when I was looking up the human rights sort of statements that Australia ascribes to, it does say that you can infringe on people's right to assemble and right to move if they cause a public, like, what is it, security, public safety, or public health. But I think where it's getting misapplied, and this is just my opinion on it, is that they're just broadly applying it to all of society rather than applying it to the individuals. Like, if I as an individual pose a public health threat, that needs to be proved, and then I can, it's like if you're a criminal, right? You can have your right to liberty being taken from you. But when you do it just across the board and nobody is even proved to have the virus, I mean, this is tyrannical, right? Because then the government can just come up with any reason and then lock everyone away. And if they don't even have to prove that you're a public health threat, then what's stopping them from falsely accusing people? So that thought of, like we can't even legally organize a protest, that led to the idea, well, it's legal to go out and exercise, and the law doesn't specify what you can or can't carry or wear. And, if others, like the idea and want to copy it, no one gets in trouble because it's not an organized public gathering. It's just individuals exercising. So, so we,
That's brilliant.
yeah, so we had a big laugh about the slogan, and we said, hey, maybe the headband can become the icon of the movement, kind of like the yellow vest is the icon of I think it was like the French movement. And, we sort of thought, hey, maybe people can come up with their own exercises, So then, we named a few exercises and came up with that and thought, hey, maybe that's something people can do and share with everyone for a bit of fun. And I thought, like I got to do something. I got to do something about these lockdowns. I got to say something. And we thought, it's worth a shot. It was funny. The information we're trying to get out is important. And even though I might get a bit of heat for it personally, I thought, at least this is, because we had other options, right? And we thought at least this one is still within the confines of the law. So let's try this first. Let's see if it gets some traction, and before we think, okay, doing something that's a bit more risky, right, legally. So then that was really only 2 weeks ago now. So that's why last Saturday was the first Saturday we went out.
So it's only 2 weeks since you started.
Yeah, that's why it's not like I've been doing this for weeks. So this is 2 weeks ago. We thought, hey, we'll do it. We'll go ahead with this. So I went to work on a website. And then we went out last Saturday, which was the first Saturday we went to the city, and we thought, okay, we'll see, we'll scope it out, we'll see like if we have any problems, we'll get some footage, and then I'll put a video out so that people can see, like, look, I'm doing this and I didn't get any trouble. So if you want to do this, it's completely up to you. So then I got to work on a website. I put all the information on there of the three main issues that I wanted to bring awareness to. And then I, reached out to a few influencers I thought would like the idea. And then we committed it to God and, hope the message would resonate with people and find support and people would get a laugh out of it. And it would encourage others that are, awake to what's going on to do something themselves.
Yeah, I love it. Before we go any further, I actually want to share this page on your website. I think you may have only put it up yesterday, but I'm not sure. I found it this morning. And it is evidence of unreliable coronavirus data. I think that's what you were referring to earlier. And there are some fantastic points here. Is coronavirus really more deadly than the flu? Okay, here we go. Unreliable testing, unreliable reporting, estimate revisions, and compared to seasonal flu. And all of these are really important points that people need to have answered, because these are the things that the government is saying, because of this, we need to take your liberties away. So for those who are watching this, please go to exercisingmyrights.com and look through the information there. I have to also tell you that a lot of people are asking where they can get that headband in the comments. Have you thought about getting them printed and selling them? Because I personally would buy one, and I think a lot of people would too. So I think you could be onto something there.
Well, yeah, people have suggested it to me. I suppose I didn't want to just like come out with like a merchandising line at the beginning, because I didn't want people to think that this was about the merchandise, right, and about making money. But I mean, if people are demanding it, I suppose I'll look into it.
Do it.
See.
Do it.
But yeah, this one I know, maybe because I'm a bit of a perfectionist at heart, so I tried to make it look really straight and really centered. But no, this one I just made myself. Obviously, it's just it's funny because it's obviously Nike branded, so it's like just do it. And even when you write Liberty and it's got the tick on the end, it's like, yep, check, got Liberty. So
I think it's great. Well, yeah. I think we have a market for you here. So once you've got that going, let us know and we'll let everyone know. I think you're going to sell out.
Great. So, yeah, but that website, I hope it's really helpful. I tried to not make the information like the heading, so you get to those pages sort of at the end at the heading under COVID-19 information, because the initial idea for the website was, hey, this is like an online exercise blog. So I suppose if authorities went there and said, oh, well, this blog is actually all about COVID-19 and stuff, but I think we're fine, because I mean you can go out and exercise. It doesn't matter like what message you're promoting while you're out there, because you have a right to get out and exercise anyway. But
You
yeah,
absolutely
definitely
do.
check out the website exercisingmyrights.com. I tried to lay it out in a way so that it acts like a quick reference card for people, because what was happening with myself and people within my church as well. Sometimes you get into online discussions, you find you're sharing the same information again and again and again, but when you depend on your own timeline, sometimes you go into your timeline in Facebook and you're like, I can't find that post, or I can't find that thing that I liked or I shared.
Yep.
So then we thought, you know what, I'll try and compile this information into one place so that it's easy for people to go, that was a really good article, or that was a really good, post, and here's the link. So it's just all in one place.
Yeah, well done. Well done. When
Thanks.
just getting back to when you were going out and exercising, you actually went to Parliament House that first weekend, didn't you? And what sort of responses did you get from people who were on the street? You already told me that streets were pretty empty, but from the people who you passed, what sort of responses did you get?
Yeah, so I counted that we were stopped probably about, because I was with one other person, obviously. We were stopped about 7 times, I say, in total. Because my when I go and exercise today, my plan is sort of just to stick around Parliament House, right? But that last Saturday, we sort of wanted to get some footage in some sort of iconic locations. So we were going around, and we had it, like I said in the video, did have a bit of trouble with the police because we didn't know that you couldn't record, or you can't hold a sign. I found out now you can't hold a sign on Opera House property. That's not
Which is
approved.
crazy.
Yeah, there's some Opera House bylaws. If you look it up, it was laws that were passed in 2015, and I think that the Sydney Opera House Trust has laws, and one of them is you can't hold an unapproved sign on Opera House property, and you can't record for commercial purposes. So that was what they tried to get us on in the first one, but commercial purposes only if you're making money from it, and since we're not making any
Yep.
money yet, technically we could have recorded, but they would have us on the sign. So about 7 times we were stopped, and of those 7 times, five of those times were people that were actually encouraging us and agreeing with the message. So definitely the majority of
Fabulous.
people that stopped us were encouraging us. One of them was the boys I was telling you about that had stopped to talk to us, and we able to engage with them there. So they were kind of just neutral and just questioning, hey, what were we doing here? And really only one other instance was somebody that was actually said something negative to us and saying, hey, you guys don't care about the healthcare workers and everything like that. And obviously
Oh,
that's not the case, and I think that's
yep.
how this conversation is always framed. It's always framed, you guys don't care about people, you just care about, money, as opposed to people not realizing that lockdowns actually have an effect on people's lives, because when people don't do well economically, it obviously affects their health as well, and
Mm.
people get very depressed, and suicides can lead from that. And there were some people as well that would, try and sneak photos of us, which is fine. Whenever I saw somebody trying to sneak a photo, I would just pose and just try and, get a good shot. But I haven't seen any of them, get shared around social media yet, so I don't know what they're doing with it.
They're
So,
waiting until you're more famous and then they're going to sell them. I knew him first.
right, right.
Oh, speaking of that, Kobe has said maybe you can get sponsored by Nike.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Contacting them?
well, I bought because the initial idea is to wear like the blue and white Adidas tracksuit, right? But I didn't get it in time for that video, so I'm still waiting for the jacket. But I've got the pants now. So
Oh dear.
yeah, we were trying to
I
just
love it.
create this sort of character in a blue and white tracksuit with a headband.
Oh, that's brilliant. Now, you were in front of Parliament House. I know it was the Saturday, so probably there weren't many politicians around, but did you see any politicians while you were there? And if so, did they speak with you?
No, no,
Nobody.
yeah, because I mean, I don't think Parliament I don't think they were sitting because it was Easter. Maybe. But
Oh,
I
right.
was trying to look up
Okay.
times that they sit. I don't think they sit on the weekends. But I guess the reason why I chose Parliament House is obviously the location and what it represents. So I thought it would be great. If I guess we'll see what happens today. But when I go there and exercise today, I mean, it would be great to go to like an empty city, but the only people that are there are all people exercising in headbands and in signs. So I guess we'll see today, because today really is the first Saturday that people know about what I'm doing, right? Because they didn't know about last Saturday, because last Saturday we went to scope it out and also take some footage to tell people what I'm doing about this Saturday.
Right.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. I hope it it sparks a movement.
Hope you're joining.
Yeah.
Tanya Mary is asking, hi, I admire your campaign exercising our God-given rights. Are we able to join as members? She wants to know.
No, it's not an organization right now or anything like that. So I guess we didn't really think so much about where this may end up. It just started out as an idea and thought, hey, it would just be cool if this became like a trend. And we thought if we spark the fire, it may get people talking. And it was really mainly about bringing the issues to the public. And making people ask, what is this, making people ask, like, what is this about? Why are they doing this? And when they saw exercisingmyrights.com, they would go there and then they would see all the information. That's was mainly what the goal was.
I'd love to see if more people join you today while you're out there wearing, they don't necessarily have to have the headband on or the T-shirt, but just, going out there holding a sign and exercising while they were, I'm not going to say protesting because it's not a protest, but just demonstrating their support for exercise and rights. So it'd be really good if more people would actually do this. Are you asking people, if they do that, to actually take pictures or video of themselves and share it with you on your Facebook page?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I would love it. I'd love it if it sparked like a social media trend of, everyone, wearing their headband of liberty, taking selfies saying, hey, just out here at Parliament House exercising my rights. So definitely
hashtag headband of liberty.
Yeah. So that's why we just thought it worked so well. We knew we were onto something when it sort of wrote itself. We were saying, I got an exercise. I'm exercising my rights, and I have a headband. To make it really obvious that we're exercising. So people have photos and videos. If they have exercises that they want to make up as well, I think that would be great. I'd love to see those, and I can share those as well if people want to send them to me. Otherwise, they can post them and tag us.
It's a great idea. Sharon Bailey said Anzac Day is coming up, which is a symbolic one for exercising one's rights. And I think you're right about that, Sharon. Absolutely. Anzac Day. I think about my father who went to World War II and fought there to protect freedoms and rights, what he would think if he was still here today. About what's going on now, and I know that he would be devastated by the idea that we could give up our rights this easily for a perceived threat that has never been proved. And to me, the scariest part about what's happening now is not necessarily the fact that we've been put into lockdown and we've been told to stay, and so many of us are doing it, but the fact how easy it was, which shows the government that they can do this at the drop of a hat anytime in the future, that we will give into that sort of blackmail, coercion, I don't know what you want to call it, that without much evidence, we've managed to be, our freedoms are taken away.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think people do not appreciate their liberties. They don't realize that they were fought for. And honestly, if I had not I traveled to America for 1 year, quite a long time ago now, and it was going there for a year and making some friends with some quite liberty-minded people that opened my eyes to this is what they mean by liberty. Like, this is interesting, and how it lines up with the principles in the Bible, and because obviously it was Christians as well there. So that opened my eyes to, how, because, I grew up in quite a, politically ignorant culture, really it's, don't really know how government goes about things. And it's always, you complain about the government, but you don't really do anything about it. So my circle of influence really is quite politically ignorant, and I think when people are politically ignorant and they don't really realize what it requires to have these liberties, like the wars that have been fought and all these sorts of things, they don't appreciate it, and
No.
because they don't, I believe, like, when people don't have a trust in God, they are generally quite fearful. So when you don't have God to go to, then who do you go? They go to the government. The government save us. Government provide for me. Government protect me. And the truth of the matter is, when people seek to be 100% safe, they're going to be 0% free. So
That's
it's
That's
one or the
really
other.
good. Did you make that up?
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, I suppose. I don't, yeah.
Well said. Well said. I really like that. Sharon again said parents are now scared to send kids to school, even though the government says that the schools are open. And that's the thing. We have been put into this state of abject terror where we're just waiting for someone to tell us what to do. And when you talk about the government being the new God, well, to me, the medical community is acting as if it's God and has been for a very long time. They have their own bishops and their popes. You know, the AMA is the Vatican now, and we are basically being told to take what they're saying on faith, and not necessarily to question too much. So, I think that we as individuals need to get out of that feeling of fear, because when you're in a state of fear, you can't possibly think. You can't possibly reason the way that you need to in order to make good choices. So I
I
love
think
the
you're right.
fact that you're using humor as well as intelligence too, because I think we have to laugh at what's happening a little bit, because it is so absurd. It's so bizarre, what has happened to our society now. Um,
Yeah, I think people have to
it's pretty.
realize, like, this is not normal. What's going on? Like, and they should not accept it as normal. And if we don't say anything, people will just think it's normal. But if they start realizing that there's dissent, then they will be encouraged to dissent as well, from
Mm,
these draconian lockdowns. And yeah, I hope it gets people asking questions, because you're right, people don't. They just, they hear something in the media, they hear the Prime Minister say something, and they think, well, why is he saying that? Who's advising him? What information did they have to advise
exactly.
that? And that's why I think that page on the unreliable evidence is so important, because people don't realize how the numbers are being fudged. They don't realize how the deaths are being, sort of padded. And, it's not like they know something we don't. They're using the same numbers. These
Yep,
experts. It's just we believe them because they wear a white coat.
that's right. With your parishioners, do they know what you're doing? I'm not even sure if parishioners is the right term. I'm sorry if
Just
it's
yeah, just
not, but
yeah, just members, church members.
and what did they think? Like, what kind of response have you had from them
Yeah,
about
it's
what you're doing?
Oh no, it's definitely positive. I pastor an independent Bible believing church in Sydney, Australia. It's called the Church in Liverpool. So we meet in a community centre in the suburb of Moorebank. And if your listeners want to know more about the church, they can visit our website. It's tcil.org.au. But we're a church of about 40 people. So right now we're still a pretty close knit group of people with
Mm,
very similar views. So I would say most of them are supportive of what I'm doing, because a lot of them are actually probably more zealous about these sorts of things than I am. And that's great, because you can't be an expert on everything. So when we get together and we talk, we sharpen one another and we keep each other informed on what's going on. So we have a great time fellowshipping around the Bible, but also on world issues as well. So definitely they are, I'd say the majority of them are supportive of what I'm doing. I even hear that, some of them might be exercising in the city today. So,
you might see someone you know.
yeah, I know. So I might run into somebody there. I think some would be neutral. I think there would be some that, aren't as passionate about this as I am. But I don't think there would be anyone negative about what I'm doing. But, like I said, this is all still very fresh. It's all still,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think they do get excited when they see me trying to get something going, and when they see other people excited about it as well, because you can tell from their social media activity, they jump on board and they're out there liking and sharing and commenting. So
That's
that's
the way
great.
it goes. That's the way it works and spreads, and that's fantastic. Um, I wanted to ask, do you consider yourself to be an activist? Is that the role that you're seeing yourself in right now on this issue?
Well, yeah, I think in one sense or another, I believe as Christians, Jesus calls us to be salt and light in the world. So, I think that means we have a duty to, preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and do what we can to have a positive impact, in this world. So, yeah, I do believe every Christian should be involved, in activism in one way or another. That's consistent with the Word of God. Uh, obviously it's activists is not, I'm not paid to do this full time or anything
No,
in that sense, but I
no.
think everybody should be involved. Everybody should do something.
Right. Okay. So you're approaching this from a Christian perspective, not necessarily a political perspective, where when I think about activism, I think about activism for the sake of not politics, but moral activism or ethical activism. And it probably all works out to be the same thing in the end,
It's
that we're
exactly it.
doing what we're feeling called to do. So,
That's
yeah,
it.
good for
So I
you.
would see it under the same umbrella. Like we're called to be
Mm,
salt and light, trying to make an impact on this world, and one thing that would entail is being involved politically as well, and
mm.
putting our voice there and making our voices heard.
So important because while so many people remain silent on this issue, silence is a tacit form of consent. And I think we need to be very strongly saying that we don't consent to this because the next step, it's very clear, the government's not even hiding it, is going to be that when a vaccine comes out, it's going to be compulsory, a vaccine against COVID-19, if they ever do make one. And
Mm.
have you looked at the vaccination issue like before this all started? Had you been aware of vaccination before the COVID-19 issue raised its ugly head?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I guess it's been many years ago now. Like I watched a documentary from Dr. Shari Tenpenny, and
Mm,
I'm probably obviously not as well versed in it as you are, but I definitely have a view on vaccines. And to me, it just made a lot of sense that vaccines don't really are not ideal in building the immune system, right? There are other ways to build up the immune system and get a true
mm,
immunity as opposed to this, temporary or false immunity where you have to keep getting these boosters, and you've got the issue of all the toxins and the ethics around creating vaccines as well. So I've never
yeah,
really believed in the idea of, really supported this idea that vaccines was the best way to go about strengthening the immune system. So, you know, I've never had my children vaccinated, and I even question what the motives are behind pushing these vaccines, because obviously when government mandates vaccines and government these vaccines are not free. People forget
no.
that maybe because you don't have to pay for the vaccine, these vaccines aren't free. Like somebody has an agenda pushing it, because there are
Mm,
obviously people like Bill Gates making a lot of money from
oh,
selling
yeah.
vaccines. And it's funny, I saw a meme on Facebook yesterday that said, if people would question vaccines more if they had to pay for them, and I agree with that. If you had to pay for your vaccine, you would probably wonder whether it was worth the money that you were paying.
That's
Um,
right.
so we've never vaccinated our children, and obviously I've copped some social flack from my extended family because of it. But so be it. I believe, and I guess when it comes to government, coercing people to get vaccinated, I believe in a very limited government power. I think government ought to have
Mm,
very limited powers. So, of course, I disagree with the way that they, coerce lower income families to get their kids vaccinated, blackmailing them with, the loss of government entitlements. But, I don't think, government should be in the welfare business to begin with. So they shouldn't even have this power to begin with. And when it comes to mandatory vaccines, the government shouldn't have the power to tell us what we can and can't put into our bodies. If certain substances, even the really bad drugs, if they're having a negative effect, that should be dealt with by social organizations like churches. Only when it leads to criminal activity, that's where the government should get involved, because the government,
Yep.
is there to punish crime, to punish evildoers. They're not there to be our parents. People talk about the nanny state, and that's what happens when the government overreaches. They start behaving like our parents rather than behaving like the government, which is punishing criminals.
Yeah, if our parents were Lenin and Trotsky, the government would be acting like our parents. Because right now, the government is far worse than most abusive parents I can think of. And you're right, you're absolutely right. We need to become independent of the government and start taking care of ourselves, because that's not their role. Sally Ann, who lives in the Philippines, has just said something that I'm pretty shocked at. We are not allowed out even for exercise here. This is the start of week 6. Please exercise and do what you can. Yeah, that is pretty amazing. At least we can still get out of our houses and exercise. And yeah, the government has said that they're going to keep going like this until there's a vaccine, which could be 18 months from now.
Yeah, because in
So,
some countries you can't exercise further than a kilometer from your house, and you can only exercise for 30 minutes. And like you said, there are some countries where you're not even allowed to go outside. So that's why when we sort of came up with this idea, we're saying, well, we try it. It's now or never, because next week we may not be allowed to go out, and I guess that's when we'd have to look at other options.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, good on you. I am so happy to see you doing that, and I hope you get a lot of support this afternoon when you go out between 2 and 4. Is that right?
Yes, I'm going to go exercise at Parliament House in the city from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock today. This time I'm going to be exercising with my family. So
Oh, lovely.
hopefully I see a lot of people out there exercising too. We got to exercise those muscles, right? If you don't use them, you lose them.
Absolutely. And if anybody watching this lives in Sydney or close to Sydney and wants to do some healthy exercise as well, then please, from a safe distance, join Victor in front of Parliament House and do some exercise and take pictures and take videos and share them. Let's get out there and show the government that we know what health is. A heck of a lot more than they do. I apologize for that. So, yeah, Victor, thank you so much again for joining us here today. I really appreciate it. Is there anything that you want to say before we go on to the next part of the show?
I guess I would say, I hope it encourages people. I hope it helps people wake up to what is going on. I think people definitely need to look into it. Go to exercisingmyrights.com, read through the articles, and I think we have to get involved. Like I was saying before, I personally have grown up in quite a politically ignorant culture. So not knowing, I think people want to do something, but they don't know what to do. They don't know how to go about it. So I definitely am educating myself in, how does the government work? Where can I get involved? Because we can't sit back. This is the thing that sort of irks me the most is we can't sit back, because a lot of Christians do this too. We can't just sit back and complain about what's going on when we did nothing to stop it. So
Yes.
I think all of us need to take that ownership that the government is the way it is, and politics is so dark because those of us who have the light are not involved. So
Yep.
I hope this encourages people to speak up and do something.
Well, Julia Lamont just said that she's just made a headband for exercising with. So I think that you're having an effect already. So good on you for that, Victor. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful afternoon. And thank you again for joining us on Under the Wire. Don't leave people who are watching this, because we've got a lot more to cover. But I really want to thank you so much and wish you all the best. And I'll be following along with what you're doing. So thanks a lot.
Thanks
Enjoy
so
the
much,
rest of
Meryl.
your
Thanks for
day.
everything you do for health and liberty.
No worries. Take care.
See ya.
Bye-bye.